got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff going on around here. If you've been checking the posts, you know who's coming on the air. But I'm still going to try to build this up a little bit because it's that exciting. He's a filmmaker. The song you heard earlier is one of his masterpieces. He's a man of many skills when it comes to the audio and visual arts. And in many other respects, an all-around good person. He's a father. He's a husband. And his name is Joey Angerone. And I'd like y'all to say hello, and I'd like him to say hello to you.
Whoo!
Oh, man. What's good? What's good, Joe?
JP.
What's good? Some of us have seen I'm guessing your latest mastermind creation.
You said you watched last night with your wife, right?
That's right, Coma Sweet.
Yep.
Unbelievable, dude. Like, I've known you, I think, since what, 06?
06, yeah, sounds about right.
All right, and Teeth Don't Grind was how many films into your life?
That was, I mean, it was the first real big one.
Interesting. Yeah. So, because before that, you had a lot of shorts. You did Tenderfoot, Jesus
right.
Juice.
Well, that's also, yeah. That, you know what? That's true.
Carne Carla.
Yep.
But now these were experimental. These were all pretty much no budget, right?
I mean, pretty much. I mean, they all still kind of are in a way.
Right.
It's funny because Coma Street was actually from Teeth Don't Grind. Was number 10, and I didn't realize that until like I was almost done with it.
Oh.
And I don't know, it made it real like more significant in a way that it was like, 10,
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
10 films in, and how many awards at this point? At least one.
Well, yeah, I mean, the only award I ever really won was for Swell, the New York LA International Film Festival Best Feature. But I mean, that's like a pretty major achievement in my life.
Hell yeah.
I mean, without it, like, I feel like I would probably still question, I mean, everything. Like, do I really suck? I mean, when complete strangers take your work and you get an accolade like that, it really makes you think like, well, when your work is appreciated, it shouldn't, but it does make it a lot more significant.
That's understandable. Of course, it's well merited, I think.
Not only just for me, but for the people I work with, because for many years I was working with the same actors, and they trusted me, and I think trust is like a big part of it. And so when I finally won an award, I was so eager to let them know. It's like, hey, all our hard work paid off. And then once they see that, they say to themselves like, oh, I guess he's not as crazy as we thought he was, like,
right.
And so that to me was the best. Like, the best part, I mean, there's a lot of good aspects of it, but one of the best parts about winning that award was telling the guys, Murph and Frank, that we had won, and I remember exactly where I was when I told those guys, that we won. And I really like relished in every second of it.
So did you get to go out to the festival and was it kind of like a big to do?
It was big to do, man. It was, it was in Midtown Manhattan. It was nice. Like, it was a really well done festival, with the red carpet and everything. And I remember Frank, like, he wore a tuxedo. We all got like dressed up. We got to really. It's hard to explain, man. Like, I think like film festivals in general is just such a major ripoff, and it was so random. Like, that particular festival, I just submitted to a few that were in New York to me, because it's like, I would never submit to like the Akron, Ohio Film Festival. Like, why would I submit to a festival where I couldn't be there in person to see it,
Right.
So I pretty much only submitted to like a few festivals in New York, and that's what I always did. And the fact that we won that one, it was just one of those things. Like, I'm glad that I submitted to that one, because I probably submitted to like 5 or 6, and that was the only one that it got into. So it's, it's totally random. And a lot of these festivals too, it's, they don't want to take a chance on anything too experimental, because there's a lot more festivals. And so there's reputations to uphold, and it's just like anything, it's a product. So I'm the last person that wants to pay someone money to tell me whether I'm good enough or not. Because honestly, I don't give a shit at the end of the day. But like I said, you have to submit because you want to put it out there and see, what happens. I mean, maybe you'll submit to 10, you'll get into none. Maybe you'll submit to 10 and you'll get into 5. And then,
Right.
it's like, well, I got something on my hands. But a lot of these festivals, especially in New York City, it's about celebrities. And so, and it's still rapidly changing too. Like, as a matter of fact, Coma Suite is funny. I've submitted to maybe 5 film festivals and, but big ones, like I submitted to Sundance and Tribeca, like, and you just know, like, it's almost like, you don't get your hopes up very high. And then the last one I heard back from, I didn't get into the first 4, and I was waiting to hear back from the last one. And I got an email. It's like, congratulations, your film has been accepted. I was like,
Wow.
oh shit, like your heart just drops. You're like, oh man, wow, I can't believe it. And then further into the email, it was like, well, we don't have a chance to screen every film, but we want to give you a second opportunity. So we want to screen your film online the week of the festival. And to do so, pay $50 to become a part. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Oh
Like, as if
wow.
you didn't make enough money from people's submissions, now you're going to take people who are so tender and be like, oh my God, I have a second chance. Like, I can't believe it.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's just such a money. Like, I want to start a film. Send me your
That's
film and
shitty.
let me
Yeah.
decide. Yeah, it's horrible. It's
That
horrible. It really is.
wow.
Yeah.
So let's backtrack a little bit. Someone like yourself who's so devoted to and so passionate about an art form that a lot of people probably are passionate about, but aren't necessarily successful, don't get to make a living doing the things they love to do. You've had a great deal of success, and you're following in some big people's footsteps. I know who like some of your inspirations are in film, and you can talk about that. But you were there. You said like you question sometimes. Damn, do I really suck? Like, did you struggle over the years with wanting to give up? And I know that you get a lot of support from your family. But how was that over the years? And God bless your dad's soul. I know he's been extremely supportive. But being married and having children is still following this immense dream and doing it right and doing it pretty well. Like, you want to talk about that and the emotional roller coaster that goes with it?
I mean, several different things popped up into my head while you were saying that.
I imagine.
Um, Throughout the years, I mean, I've said this before. Like, it's almost the fact that I don't really ever learn my lesson about making films is really, like I've always said, like my flaws are my biggest asset, and anybody that knows me knows I say that constantly. Like that's one of my quotes. I have a few, and that's one of them. And you know what it is? It's like not much time can go by before I'm like, I have to do something. I have to create something, and just as far as like having a family now and with the kids and stuff, like you see the song that you played at the top of the show was, a song I did with my son, and you saw Coma Suite, and my kids are in Coma Suite, and we shot it in my house, and pretty much like I don't really like I never try to like conjure up ideas that are bigger than who I am. My life is my family, so put the kids in the movie, shoot in the house. Like that's like I'm not the greatest writer when it comes to music or when it comes to screenplays. So it's like I do what I know, and I can't pretend to be something I'm not. And I think that's where a lot of the truth comes in a lot of the work that I do, like especially Coma Suite. Like to me, Coma Suite really was. I mean, Swell is really extremely personal, but it's also very surreal at the same time. Whereas I feel like Coma Suite is just based in like, I don't know, like harsh realities and stuff. But no, I mean, like I never truly lost confidence throughout the years. I mean, you only get better as you get older, and that's what I tell a lot of younger artists too.
Yeah.
If you get discouraged throughout the years, it's because you're not getting positive feedback. I've always gotten somewhat positive feedback, as small as my audience is, and I just, like I said, I always know, like I know I can do this, and I know it might not be the prettiest thing or the most perfect looking thing, but if I have a story to tell, I'm going to tell it. And oftentimes, I never go back and re-edit stuff like when it comes to lyrics or like the screenplay or anything. Like I just everything, and especially as I get older, everything is like much more stream of consciousness style, from the heart, and the heart has a lot to say. And
Yeah.
I that's why I never really like with Coma Suite 2 especially. Like I wrote that script. I started almost like 2.5 years before I started shooting it, and it starts off as like little like notes in your phone, and then it builds up from there. Like the tiniest things. Like for example, I'm sure. Well, if you remember watching the film when they were sitting down on the couch and the girl and the guy were
Who's
on the
this
couch
scared little thing?
Oh, exactly. Yep. So that was like the very beginning. That was like the first little bits and pieces of them talking about, life in general. So it all started from there, and then it kind of like it just expands on both ends. Like that's pretty much the middle of the film, and then you go to the beginning and you go to the end for me, and just little tidbits, little pieces encompass really the film. Like I just like the small things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I feel
What?
like I went off topic a little bit.
No, you're good. You're good to go. When you're writing, when Joey Angerone's writing a script, and this will make more sense when people have seen more of your films, maybe even in order. What goes through your mind? How do these ideas come to you? I mean, you've been doing this a long time. At this point, I'd say all of your adult life, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So you've been doing it you could say you've been doing it all your life at this point as a career. And so how does this happen? What's that process like? And why?
You know what?
Is there a
really
reason?
Try to visualize everything. Like I've heard in the past that artists like Jay-Z, like he never writes down his lyrics.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And it's kind of the same thing for me. I mean, the only reason why I write anything down is for the actors. I visualize everything before I write a single word. Like I said, I do make notes in the phone, just like funny little anecdotal type of things. Like I'll write that stuff down just because they're like little like drunken gems, that you get. But as far as like the whole arc, like the whole story arc, it's all visualized, And it's funny because I said this recently. You remember the Warm War that you were in the film? That was the last film I made before I had kids. It was the last film I made while my dad was still alive, and I feel like there's a nihilistic aspect to it because of those reasons. Like I always say, like that was the film like before the hurt, like before everything changed and my life changed completely. And back then I had a lot more time to visualize. I wasn't as busy, and my visualizing moments come like to me early in the morning. Like I used to be able to wake up and I had some time before I had kids. I had some time to like sit there and almost meditate, and come up and visualize ideas and characters and stuff. And so I still do the same thing, like before I go to bed, when I wake up in the morning, I take whatever time I have and try to visualize everything. And I want it to be as abstract as possible, keeping in mind, what I'm able to shoot, because I'm limited there. It's not like I could have a movie where like a helicopter comes in and blows up a bridge or some shit,
Right.
Obviously. So in a lot of ways too, you take your limitations and what you can and can't do, and then you create from there. So I'm not like one of these people that, it's funny because I was out last night and I met someone, they want to do like a commercial that I'm supposed to shoot for this new food product, and I was talking to the guy, and I'd never met him before. He's really interesting, and he told me he wrote the screenplay, and I was like, oh, so it was like so crazy, and it sounded really cool. It was like a feature-length thing, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, like, I would never write something I can't make, because to me, it's pointless. I have a short time in this world, and if I'm going to write something, I'm going to make it. Like, I would never, like, oh, I wrote this movie about like this action hero that like, blows up the city and fights all these terrorists and does all this crazy shit. Like, that's cool. If you're creative and you want to write something like that, that's amazing. I would never do that because I don't have enough time to write something I'm not going to shoot, So
Yeah.
I always even consider location. Like for Coma Suite, for example, a lot of the film takes place in my house. And that's not because, I wanted it to be like that. It's because I knew that's how it had to be.
Right.
So like I said, my personal life is popping up in everywhere. We live by this abandoned psychiatric center. The opening scene was shot there, and the scene with the detective when they go back and they examine the burnt corpse and stuff. It's like
Yeah.
I knew exactly where it was going to be.
Wow.
Dave and Buster's, where we shot at Dave and Buster's at the end, we're always there. Like, so that's pretty much like how I visualize it.
So
I don't
what?
go
Yeah.
too far into it. I just it's a lot of it's very on the surface.
All right. What might happen, or do you have a plan? You say you don't make a film you can't make. Like if you can't make this film tomorrow, you're not going to write it probably.
Yeah.
But if somebody dropped a nice healthy budget in your lap, let's go with like not quite Hollywood, but independent channel independent film channel type budgets. What might happen? Might that change, or would would that just change? How much more you could do with it? What?
You know what? If you asked me that question 10 years ago, when I was just so full of ego but not experience, or I'd be like, oh man, I got so much fucking idea. I'm going to do this film and that. Like answering the question now, knowing that it would never happen, is completely different. And not to divert from that question, but I also think there's this like big XY axis to at least my career as far as filmmaking. When I was young and I had no confidence, or rather I had no experience, I was faking confidence. And now that I've done it, it's like, and I know what I'm capable of and I know the reality of it, the answer has changed completely. Yeah, are there like ideas that I've had that I want to do that I was never able to accomplish on a budget? Absolutely. But nowadays I don't think about that much, Like
Yeah.
my days are full. Like I work freelance and I'm very busy. I'm busy with my family, and so I don't have time to fantasize about what could be,
Right.
There is what happened and there is now. I used to live, I don't know, like I absolutely don't live in the past. Like I really do try to live in the present. And as far as artwork, like it's always on my mind. And after I made Coma Suite, I was like, all right, this is it. It was an extremely selfish thing to do. I spent my own money on it. I would send Kim away on the weekends, or Kim and the kids on the weekends. They would go to my in-laws' house so I could shoot. And it's a selfish thing. Coma Suite is probably the most selfish thing I've ever done. It's not like Teeth Don't Grind where I'm young, I'm not married, and I have all the time in the world. Didn't even live with Kim at the time. So now I look back like, man, I really went, and I can say this, Coma Suite is the last of that kind of film. I'll never do that again, because I felt like I said what I had to say. I mean, 10 years from now, who knows? Life changes, things move on. I'm always, as soon as like I feel like, oh man, I said what I had to say with the movie. Then I made the album with Quentin. I was like, man, I said what I had to say. Like for me, I'm just so restless. I can't. Like I always feel like there's something else, and like my audience is so limited, but it's just like this, and it doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter. If one person's listening, or a whole bunch of people are listening, like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it no matter what.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, how old are the kids?
Quentin just turned 6, and Maisie will be 2 in 2 weeks.
All right. So the 2-year-old may not necessarily have recall memory, but has Quentin seen all or any or most of your films?
He has. I used to play when I was working on the Civil War film. I used to play it for him, and we would laugh because in the very beginning of it, Kim's brother is getting his arm sawed off, and but he was young then. He didn't understand really. Like he just thought it was so funny,
Right.
But Coma Suite, he saw the entire thing from beginning to end, and it's a super intense film. It has cursing, it has, you saw it, what happens. It's a crazy film. It's dark, it's really brutal, it's sick. But I would never, for him, like I wouldn't want him to work on it and just like wonder whatever happened. Like I want him to see, like, hey, we shot this thing. You want to see what happened? This is what happened. And admittedly, the first time he watched it, I was like a little drunk, like kind of buzzed. It was around Christmas time. And it was the first time he watched it. And I didn't feel bad about it. But then he watched it again when my friend was over. It was like during the day, like totally, like dead sober kind of thing. And I felt bad, and I was distracted him at points, you know, even though he'd already seen it. But there were certain, like, he remembers the whole thing we talked about. And he's like, oh, I know this, and I remember that. And it's got to be weird for him. Like, I know it is, but
Well, I'll tell you, I actually my kids are away at grandma's, but I have shown my kids a couple of your films, particularly especially Teeth Don't Grind, and
your kids
they
saw Teeth Don't Grind.
yeah, of course.
That's
They
crazy.
actually they know who you are, and they think it's fascinating that I've done work with somebody who makes films of your caliber,
That's nice
because
to
they've
say.
seen the most recent ones, and when they see, I'm excited to show, because Lily, she's turned 8 now, but for quite a couple of years, maybe a few years, her favorite genre is horror and gore. And you know what? I mean, like, one of her favorite movies is Saw, which
Oh, okay. Well, in
as a
that case,
parent, you know, a lot of American parents are probably freaking out. Like, she's how old? But the listeners know that in our home we practice mostly peaceful parenting and radical unschooling, and honestly, like, there's children should be capable of understanding the difference between art and reality, and I know that my kids can, and I can only imagine your kids are as smart as you are. And especially if they've taken part in it, this is something they've helped create. They understand it's fiction. They understand, you know. So I think you're actually maybe doing them a service as a parent to be so open about such things. Yeah.
I think so. And when it comes to Quentin, I don't. He's not like one of these kids that comes up with these like weird abstract ideas, and you're like, oh my god, that's so creative, that's so cool. Like, I feel like he, in a lot of ways, is a regular kid. It's only my interaction with him that
Right.
makes it any different. You know, if
Right.
same kid, different parents, he would probably, you know, sit down and watch TV or go on an iPad, and you know, um, and I think that's kind of cool that he's just kind of like, yeah, that's just my life, you know. And it might not be as impactful now as it will later on in his life, you know. I'm not one of those type of parents where it's like I want to interject my own philosophies or beliefs on him. He's going to believe something completely different from what I do, and as a matter of fact, the more I push an idea on him, the more he's going to reject it.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
if he's
Yeah.
into something completely different from what I'm into, then like I'm going to embrace that too. It's the same way my parents were. You know, my parents were totally supportive in anything my brother and I wanted to do, whether it was like one week it's like drawing and calligraphy and markers and pens. You know, the next week my brother's in karate. And you know, we didn't come from some um we were completely like middle class. I mean, not even, I don't even, if you want to say like middle class, probably didn't even exist back then, you know. We were, you know, everything was very simple, and especially back then, like 80s, 90s, like completely different from today, where there are so many different different things that kids get into, you know. Like we really try to keep it, or at least I do, as simple as possible, you know.
Yeah.
That being said, when it comes to film and music, my two big passions, those are where it gets crazy. When Quentin wants to watch, you know, he loves Pee Wee's Big Adventure. That's one of my favorite films.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
so like those Tim Burton films, like Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice, right off the bat, like those three are probably his favorites, you know.
Yeah.
And hell
Yeah.
yeah, like those are great for a kid.
Yep.
Even the Pee Wee's the show, Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Playhouse. Right.
I remember watching that show as a kid, and I remembered certain things like him making like these little dolls out of vegetables, or making like ice pops in the freezer. Like I remember those. I hadn't seen them in years, but they stuck with me, you know.
Yep.
And I could see he has the same reaction to it. Like I think that stuff is great, you know. Some parents are like, oh, that show, it has like, you know, homosexual undertones or whatever.
Oh
Like, yeah,
no.
maybe it does, but
Yeah, it does, because it was
well, you
initially.
can never get away with that today.
Well, yeah, but you know what? What I would say is children's programming today. I've tried. being a parent, I would deliberately tried to stomach it myself to see, and honestly, like we do the same thing in our household. We watch Mister Rogers. We watch Pee Wee's Playhouse. I show them. I mean, sure, my kids are exposed to new things and they like Disney movies and whatnot, like any normal kid. But I'll be damned if broadcast television is turned on in our home, and I can see they have the same reactions as well. It's interesting that you pointed that out. Watching something like Pee Wee's Playhouse, something nostalgic for you and I. Even Mr. Rogers, for instance, I can see the same sort of mental processes and absorption of something wholesome, as opposed to sitting in front of some of these new like Nickelodeon and Disney shows, which honestly are pretty racy.
Well, all right, so yeah, they have those like more, 8 to 10 or whatever, like the older shows, but the ones for like the younger kids, like Blaze and the Monster Machines and Bubble Guppies. Those are two that he kind of grew up with. And the thing that they have to do now is like push a certain agenda as far as like education. So there's like a lot of math stuff. And it's simple math. It's like, oh, well, Blaze wants to put out 4 of the fires and 3 of them, like that kind of thing.
Right.
And the same thing with Bubble Guppies, which I see him when he watches those shows and he reacts really well. And he's like learning math at the same time. Like there's no room for, creativity or weirdness the way Pee Wee's Playhouse was. So, I mean, there's a couple that are decent for that aspect of it. But I feel like when he watches the Pee Wee's Playhouse and that kind of stuff, he's learning something different. He's learning how to be creative in a more raw way instead of like a cartoon where it's like just straight math. And I mean, it's weird because as the years go by, you think about, well, what I showed him. Like I remember like binge watching Breaking Bad when he was like 2 or 3. It's like, all right, well, he doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they're smoking fucking meth and
we did that. Yeah,
but it's a slow progression, and now he's 6. You can look back on the last 3 years or whatever and say like, well, what if I showed him recently that might not be? And here he is right here. Quentin, you want to say hi?
Let's say hello.
No, he's crazy right now. This is like the witching hour.
Does he want to say hello now?
Probably not.
All right.
Hold on.
Hear him.
Quentin, here. Quentin, we're talking about Pee Wee's Playhouse. You like that show? What do you like about it?
I don't know.
Hard to say? He's being really shy.
This is great. Hello, Quentin.
Like Pee Wee's Big Top?
Yeah.
Remember Beetlejuice?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like that?
Mm-hmm.
You sound like a monkey right now. This is JP. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hello, Quentin. How you doing? I know your dad a long time. Welcome to my show.
Hi.
Say hello to the audience. There's people listening to you.
Hi.
What about Coma Suite? What do you remember from Coma Suite? You remember shooting with Caroline?
Yeah.
Was it fun?
Mm-hmm.
Remember Dave and Buster's?
Yeah.
Quentin, let me ask you a question. Which is your favorite one of your dad's films?
I don't know.
Did you like Teeth Don't Grind?
He's never seen that one.
Really?
What about Off the Cuff, the ones there in the woods, the girls and the guys with the handcuffs?
Mm-hmm.
You like that one?
Mm-hmm.
But Coma Suite's probably your favorite, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I don't know.
Think about it.
I liked it a lot. I thought you were great.
A lot of people say that, Quint.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Lewis, as a matter of fact, said we watched it here at the house. Lewis and his wife and Quentin and I, we watched it. And the next day, Lewis emailed me. I don't think he was all that like blown away by the film, but he's like, oh, man. He's like, I got to tell you, Quentin, he was so good. And watching him perform, he has such a future in acting. And he's like, you got to take steps to, ensure that he does, goes on auditions and do all that. Like the one takeaway for Lewis was Quentin's performance, which is cool. Like that definitely means a lot to me, because it's probably the most organic part of it, him and Maisie being in the film. Yeah. Even though Maisie was so young at the time, and you know how it is with kids, like 6 months go by and they're completely different people. Maisie was just pretty much just sat there like the whole time, Like if we
Yeah.
shot it this summer, it would be completely different. Completely different
I can imagine.
film. Because we were
So-
shooting this
yeah.
time last year, and it's funny because I think now and I think back, and yeah, I'm busy with work and stuff like that, but man, the pressure I put on myself to shoot that last year was just it was insane. Like get the house cleaned out. We're gonna be here. We're gonna be shooting. We're gonna be in the city. I need an apartment. We rented an Airbnb in Bed-Stuy to shoot the scene
Wow.
with the carrot. And all that pressure I put on myself for like not much in return. I think back now, like, oh my God, it's such a relief that I'm not doing that right now. Like the film is done, and I could just look back on it as an accomplishment and complete craziness, and because when you're in it, it's like for me, I can't sleep. Like I'm up like thinking about it all day and night.
All right. You want to play another song for the
Yeah,
listeners?
let's do that.
And we'll take a quick break. I'll wet my whistle.
Quentin,
So-
are you gonna play some Party Hospital?
Is that
Which one are you gonna play? Well, he has Thumbskin. You want to play Thumbskin? All right, let's do that.
Thumbskin? All right. So then,
All right, bud.
all right, we're gonna play that. I'm gonna wet my whistle. We'll be back with the last 20 minutes or so of this amazing interview, and we'll talk to you in a moment. Joey Angerone. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Hangin' with Who, Season 2, Episode 16, featuring a very good friend of mine, Joey Angerone. Check out joeyangerone.com. You know what, we'll put it in the after show post, spelled Joey Anger 1. Definitely make sure you follow us on Steemit. It's steemit.com/@movement19. And we're here each and every Tuesday from 7 p.m. Eastern Time. This song is Thumbskin off the Party Hospital album, Joey Angerone and Quenty. There you have it. And we're obviously getting the echo off of Joey's speakers.
Oh, was
That's
that
all right.
me?
Yeah, that was you.
I thought I was on mute.
Thumbskin. What was that about?
So that song is basically about how people use religion to judge other people and how shallow a life of following religion really is. In
Deep.
a way.
You know, when I hear your music, it sounds like a movie to me. You know, like I can't help but get some sort of visuals off the different parts of the songs as it
Mm.
progresses and whatnot. Is that what happens in your head when you're making music?
Well, the Party Hospital stuff is way different because I mean that's my musical outlet now. You know, I used to do like the hip hop stuff and with Evan and all that kind of thing, which was fun too. But this I started taking a little bit more seriously. When Quentin was 3, we recorded our first song, and it was cool. It was way different. It was just like completely random, and I saw the way he reacted to it was really positively. Like constantly wanted to hear the song. It's so funny too because as soon as before you took the break, Quentin's like, "We watching Coma Suite. We watching Coma Suite." He was all excited, which I love, you know. And I can't really see doing like I can't make music without him or make another movie or something without him, you know. Like
Really?
that's just the way it is. And yeah, I can't see it, you know. Like he's such a big part of my life. To me, I almost feel like why pretend that that doesn't exist? And I feel like a lot of I don't know. I feel like well, anyway, I can divert, but
Oh no, I
um,
have a feeling I know where you're going with that, and that's okay if you want to go that direction. I'm down.
well, I was going to say two things. I was going to say one that a lot of parents have kids and they feel like they're just parents and that you know
Yeah.
everything has to be by the books and obviously that's not me. I could never pretend that I'm not who I am, which is like this weird, dark, abstract artist and I don't have any like going back to what we said before. I don't really have a problem with exposing that to my son. And then I was also going to say too that well, first of all, well, Party Hospital, it's so unique because Quentin is a part of it. You know, his little voice that cuts through. Um, there's nothing like it. There's to me, there's absolutely. I've never heard anything like that where you have like, well, he was 3 at the time, and then we made another album when he was 4, and then 5, and this is about like the third album we made. We made like a little LP in between, or an EP in between, and it's just like I don't know if we started doing it and it didn't go anywhere and he didn't like it and it was just like a waste of time, I'd say whatever. Like, yeah, I'd make music by myself, I guess.
Right.
But since he was so interested in it, it's like again, I say like I'm not gonna we're not gonna be around here forever, you know. If I could take the time that my dad was always like so like you said, so supportive of me. So I spend a lot of my time doing the same thing for him. Um I'm not gonna pretend that he's not here, you know. It just I think there's nothing lamer than someone trying to like cling to their youth and you know like I couldn't picture being down here trying to make music while the kids are like banging on the doors trying to get. It's like no, give me 5 more minutes. Like no, he's here. Like we're doing it together. And
Yeah.
I make crazy punk music and shit. Like I'm not at the same time I'm not going to change that. And it's funny because I sent the album to my friend Shannon. She was down in Austin. She's a good friend of mine. She knows the films and the music and stuff. And I sent her the album. She's like, oh, I was expecting it to be like a cover of like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. She's like, I should have known better, you know. And I thought that was so funny because I think that's what a lot of people think when I say like, oh, I have a band with my son, and they hear it, but it's just like this crazy, fucked up, dark songs about religion, this crazy shit, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it makes for a completely unique thing. And as far as like the cinematic aspect of it, I think this kind of lends itself to that in an even better way because it's not like I could sit down with a guitar and like churn out a couple chords and try. It doesn't work like that, especially when I'm working with Quint. Like a lot of times, it starts with the drums and the BPMs is like a big part of it. Like I overthink everything now. And like for the last thing that we did, everything is the exact same BPMs and you know, I'm visualizing an album. I'm not visualizing a song with this, you know,
Right.
because I want it to be something, you know, like I want, like, especially and I'm talking a mile a minute here, but especially the last album, I really, like, we worked on it, like, I constantly, dude, like, the mixing, like, the themes, the album art, like, everything really was super cohesive compared to the last 2 albums that we did, which was more of like a hodgepodge, you know, of like bits and pieces and things coming together over the course of a small period of time. This was like, I want to do an album. I want it to be conceptual. And when we started recording, which was like October, you know, we would just churn out instrumentals at first. Like that's how we did it. And Quinty will do the drums, and a lot of times like I'll have to loop up his drumming because it's not like he can really keep a steady beat, but I want him
Right.
to be part of every aspect, you know. And I explain it to him as we go, like this is what we're doing, this is what the song's about, and he's down here while I'm playing guitar and the bass. But then I pretty much like master all the instrumentals, do all the lyrics, and do my vocals before it's Quinty's turn because I don't want him to be discouraged and like, all right, well, oh, we changed the lyric on it. Well, now the song's about this. Like everything is completely fleshed out by the time Quinty gets on the mic. And I spent about 6 days total just on Quinty recording his vocals.
Wow.
And so it's like, I don't want him to come into it feeling like he's being used, you know, like even though he wouldn't understand what that was. For me personally, like I don't want, like to me, it's not worth it if it's just like get in here and do this and that's it and then get out.
Yeah.
You know, I want him to know what he's doing and I want him to like explore things. And you know, we've written lyrics together and it's so funny because his lyrics are so sweet and so pure. But at the end of the day, I'm like, you know, like I wanted to. And I do use some of his lyrics, like I do, but that's one thing that I do tweak because I do want it to be like the whole thing about Party Hospital is like this duality, you know, light and dark, a child and an adult, you know, taking something like heavy like religion or, you know, the government or school shootings and then shine like a different light on it. And like when his voice comes in, it changes everything. And that's when I thought to myself, like, man, you really like, I felt like this is such a great outlet, not just for me, but for him too, for me to explore my dark weird shit that I need to do, for him to just, you know, have a good time and see the result of him working hard artistically.
And maybe even bring some innocence to it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think in the beginning it was more like that. If you listen to the first album, it was more innocent. But the more I kind of sunk my teeth into it and saw the potential, it became something a little bit deeper, a little bit darker, I guess. And, you know, like I said, especially for this last album, which there's so much going on there. And it was at a time in my life which was really, there were so many changes going on, you know, and I could look back at that album and I hadn't listened to it in a while actually, until you played it recently. And I could look back and be like, man, that came out really good. Like I'm really happy with that. And I can't say that about a lot of my art. With films, you know what it is? It's like, I could be a control freak about every aspect of it, but one thing you can't change is somebody's performance. You know, with Coma Suite, there are things I love about it. There are certain things that I'm like, maybe he could have done better on this day. And I could think about the day and be like, he was a little dragging his ass a little bit.
Right.
But with music, there is none of that. It's like, it's all on me. It's all on him. If I want to change something, I can change it. And so there's, you know, I could look back and be like, anything that's wrong with it, I could be like, well, that's your fault. You could have changed it. You could have changed the lyric. You could have changed the way you recorded it. And that's not the same thing with film. So that's why I feel like Party Hospital Way is, I don't know, to me, it's just like, it's definitely one of my favorite things that I've done that I could listen to or, and not, I don't know, feel any regret about it, you know, because you could constantly work on it, you know.
Yeah, I know.
And this album especially, I feel like honestly, it's one of the best things I've ever done creatively.
Wow, I might agree. Well, I mean, I'd have to do a little bit more comparing, and I think I probably have to catch up too. I may have skipped a couple things, not on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's weird because, and for me, it's weird because now I'm like, what am I, 38, 37, and you know, it's been a long time, and guys like Evan and the people that you were referring to early on in Six and those guys, like, you know, in the beginning, it was like, oh man, Joe's creative and he's doing these things. Let's, you know, and I had so much support from them in the beginning when I sucked. But then as I got better and as I got older, I don't know. I don't want to say that people resent what I do, but in a lot of ways, it's like, oh, what the fuck is Joe doing now? Like, you know, and I send the album to a bunch of people. It's like, oh, Joe's doing something with his son. Okay. And I can get great feedback from complete strangers, but the people I
Yeah.
know best are the people that say the least. And
Yeah.
it's like I said to them, it's like I'm waiting for all my best friends to get back to me, the people that supported the shit out of me 10 years ago, and those are the guys that are fucking radio silent. So it's weird. Not that I need them to kiss my ass and be like, this is great, but it's like, hello, I'm doing the best things I've ever done.
Yeah. Well,
I never felt like I fell off.
it's familiarity. It's
Yeah.
people have been around. As I said, I've known you for quite some time, and we're not very close together. In distance wise, and we haven't seen each other often in recent years. But you're one of those people that if I lived down the street, either we'd be hanging out at your place or my place at least every other day.
Oh my God. I think that we wound up on the front page of the newspaper.
Well, it would all get caught on film probably.
Right.
It's so it's interesting because here you are, you've come to showcase your art, and primarily we're when I think about interviewing you, I think about focusing on what you do artistically, creatively, your outlet, what you are publicly, and here you are talking about because I can relate to what you're saying about Quentin being such an important part of your life, where there's almost like a criticism of parents these days, and I think that's perfectly okay to say. I'll say it for you, if anything, where children, kind of like seen and not heard. They're in this like separate plane from the grown-ups, and the grown-ups are grown-ups, and the children are children. But in my life, I'm very much like you. My children are a part of me. They're there. They're with me. They're not, I don't kick them out of their room. I don't, there may be times, for instance, when I'm doing a podcast, I may be like, shh, for a second, but
Yeah, you have to.
but they understand. They're like, oh, well, Dad's doing a podcast, and they might say hi too. And I think that's important. I think what you're doing in that respect is setting a good example, because it's something the world needs these days, Joey. It's good examples are few and far between. So I
don't want to say I'm the best example, and as
I
a
didn't
matter
say
of
best.
fact, I thought you did. But,
a good one, a good
oh,
example.
you said good. Okay, yeah, good. I'll agree with good.
But there aren't many of those.
Well, look, my life is unique, and it's kind of weird because, well, two things. One, I'm not the best parent in the world. I know that. I'm definitely not.
Oh, who is?
Exactly. But at the same time, in my life these days is not a lot of overthinking, I guess you could say, because I think, well, there's so much going on. I have little cousins that I love, and they're about like 18. My cousin Lindsay's 18. My cousin John's about 15, 16. And they're from a different generation than my kids are, And I could look at them in the video game, cell phone, computer generation, and I see things about them that are kind of tweaked in a way where there's a lack of confidence that comes with the internet. And it's that kids their age, they could, say you're into something. I want to be a magician. I want to be a juggler, whatever. You go on YouTube and you search out, magicians, you find the best one in the world. You're into dominoes. You're into building a house of cards. You go onto YouTube, you find the best one that there is. And that discourages kids. And so they're like, why bother? I just went to YouTube. This guy has 20 million views. He's the best, card thrower in the world. When we were younger, we had to seek that stuff out. We had to go to the library, maybe got VHS, So we were more inclined to be motivated to learn a trade. These kids, they're not motivated to learn trades. They're not motivated to learn art because they see a person, they're successful, and that's the end of it. How do you beat the guy who's the best in the world at throwing cards that has 20 million views on YouTube? You just say to yourself, you can't. And as a kid, and I understand that. I totally understand that they're easily discouraged because of the internet, because of social media and Instagram and these celebrities and these fake lives.
I can see that.
So I see it. They want everything, but they want to do nothing for it. They don't want to work for it. They they expect everything to fall into their lap because their view is so skewed by social media and by internet and YouTube. That's just like, well, no, I don't. Things should just happen for me. And look, that's not for everyone. I can't say that's for everyone because certain cultures, like you could say Korean or Japanese culture, they're more involved with the kids. Like you go on you, and maybe I'm guilty of it too. I'll go on YouTube. I'll see like this 6-year-old Korean girl playing the drums like a fucking pro. And you're like, oh, well, Quentin's not playing the drums like that. What am I doing wrong? So, I guess, the same way I'm guilty of it too. But fucking, 25, 30 years ago, you would have never seen that. Maybe it would have been on the news or something at night. But, now it's just such a big part of everyone's life that these kids, and also, the world population is insane. It's like, 7 billion people in the world. The world population has doubled since 1975. So you're dealing with a lot of people, and you're dealing with a lot more competition, So I can understand being discouraged. And when we were younger, we would go to school, we would come home, we'd be at a friend's house or parents' house and not have a lot of pressure to do anything else. But now it's like kids go to school, then they come home, they go on social media, and then they're pressured to be accepted on that plane as well. So it just never ends. Like I read this article recently about vamping, which is like kids or people in general staying up at night on social media and losing sleep, and it's just a whole part of, your mental health and your physical health as well. It affects both. So
sure.
One thing I want to instill in Quentin is individuality. And by doing that, it's like, I don't say yes or no, right or wrong. It's like, you got to learn for yourself in a way. If he ever, let's say, got into the arts and people started critiquing his work, like the way they do mine, I would see it from the very beginning of where it affected you so much. For me now, personally, I think it's just so hilarious. Someone having like a bad review of my film or having like, it's just so funny to me. 10 years ago, I would have been like, fuck them. They don't know what they're talking about. Like, I'm the best, blah, blah, blah. But now it's just like, I get it. Like, I'm not the best in the world. And to me, I think like the bad reviews of my films and music are even better than the good ones, It's completely switched. Again, that XY axis, I just diverted there in a way. But.
No, that's all right. Yes, I was getting ready to slow you down. We just hit a little over the hour mark, and if you're willing to stay with us a couple more minutes, I'd like to touch on one more thing. So you brought up your wife, and you've got a tremendous support network, and I've met Kim, and I know she's clearly a good mother and a supportive.
Well, she thinks you're an oddball. So.
Oh, I know. Trust me. I don't think I was allowed to take a shit in your bathroom at some point.
Man, you shit in the coffee cup? Threw it out the window?
But and speaking of wives, Mary just came home from work, and so what I kind of wanted to yesterday on the Monday show, we talked with homesteaders, who a great deal of them, all but one were married couples. Who'd been, and they were talking about their stories leading into the lifestyle of surrounding homesteading and off-gridding and prepping and whatnot. And they're pretty hardcore, some of the people that I interviewed. And one of the topics that came up was how taking on something so serious and devoting so much effort into something like such an endeavor, what it can do to a relationship and how it can really prove, and strengthen love. And I can't imagine that. For an artist like yourself, who's so devoted to and passionate about your art, I can only imagine that it's a very similar strain on relationships. I can kind of vouch for it because while I don't have the success artistically that you have, I still have the experience. So
I don't think that's necessarily true.
well, talk about that. Get a little deep with us.
Well, I think in the beginning, Kim was a lot more jealous of that part of my life and the fact that I would work with actors, actresses, and it was the source of a lot of tension between us. But as things progressed, Kim got so much more supportive. And when I made Coma Suite, which was the craziest one, it's not like when I was single and I was making a film we have a house, we have kids, and she was just like so supportive of it. I'm going to let him do what he needs to do. I'm going to leave for the weekend to let him destroy the house. She came home to a huge mess. The scene with the candles in the bathroom, the candles melted everywhere. There was wax all over the house. And she's like,
wow.
and I mean, it's so beautiful to see. I mean, first of all, she's an amazing mom. She's a beautiful person. And she's a huge inspiration for me. As a matter of fact, I made Coma Suite for her because I would make all these films, and the Civil War film was for my brother. I dedicated it to him. And she said to me after the Civil War film, she said, "When are you going to make a movie for me?" And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? She's right. It's time. And Coma Suite is absolutely 100% for Kim.
Wow.
Everything I wrote was for her. The performances from the kids, I felt like she could really appreciate, and I couldn't wait for her to see it. And for me, it's like when I make a film, I never tell Kim about it because I want her to be so surprised by it. She doesn't know anything, nothing. Because
I remember that about you. I remember you've told me that.
And I've said this before. And if you're in a relationship with someone, Kim and I have known each other since high school, so it's a long time to be with someone and smell their farts, and see them at their worst, and know who knows your worst attributes more than your partner, So to me, it's like, how could I impress her? It's like by making a film for her to sit down in the audience, get super excited, and she's told me. We talk about seeing a Tarantino film or a Paul Thomas Anderson film, and it's like those artists, like, you get excited because you're going to like it.
Right.
You just don't know why yet. So she's like, for me, that is, I mean, maybe she has to say that, but I truly do feel like, I mean, come on, we know each other so well. She knows how passionate I am. And it's the only way I could really impress her. And in a way, it's, I mean, first of all, it's super cool because if you're two parents and you work 9-to-5 jobs, and like, how do you impress your significant other? It's hard. For me, I have that advantage. I have the advantage of,
point.
Like with Party Hospital too. I worked on that album. She didn't hear shit. She didn't hear any of it. And when it was time for her to listen and it was done, she sat down on the couch. The kids were sleeping. I said, "Here, take a couple hits of weed, lay down on the couch. I want you to put on these $150 Sennheiser headphones, and you're going to listen to this album." And I left. I wanted that to be the most impactful for her. It's not like I'm like, "Hey, listen to this song while it's in progress." And I think artists that play stuff that's, it's still in the works or an in progress thing, it's amazing to me. I would never fucking do that. For me, it's like completely finished, polished. When she saw Coma Suite, when we had the premiere in the city, it was like, that was it. She didn't know anything.
Wow.
So it was overwhelming for her. I want her to see that and be like, "Oh my God, my husband is," I'm almost getting choked up talking about this, honestly. Like, "Oh my God, he had something to say." Like, the kids were in it, she could see little tidbits of our own relationship in the film.
Wow.
It's not like 100%, the two of us, but, I want it to be overwhelming. I want, and the last time we watched it together, she only saw it twice. We watched it here, and, she cried, and like, of course I love that. Like, you better fucking cry, bitch. You kidding me? But, it's important to me. I love her, and sometimes love gets washed away, through the years. It's easy to lose sight of how you fell in love with someone. For me, love is a huge thing. It's you make songs and you make films about two things: women and loss. I mean, that's it. Like, what else? Those are the two most powerful things in life for. I mean, I say women from a male perspective, but
right.
Love.
I get what
loss,
you're saying. I get it.
You that's it. There's nothing else, and I've dealt with both. So I don't even consider myself to be like a super romantic person, but I feel like my last few films are, they're about love. They're about relationships, because that's my world. Like I say, everything in my life, art, parenting, it's super stream of consciousness these days. It's like,
Word.
What's on the surface, that's what needs to come out. You don't want to overthink it. Like, the heart's a powerful thing, more powerful than the brain,
Yep. All right. So listen, we got two more songs to go. I'm gonna play one now. It's either gonna be you choose. We've already heard Hiroshima and Thumbskin, and then we'll come back and pick your brain real quick about what you have going on. What we can expect from you, and we'll invite you back.
Sounds good, man. Hit him with the scrape.
All right, you got it.
All right, cool.
So we're gonna listen to Scrape off of Party Hospital, Joey Angerone, and Quenty.
Big brother used to beat you over the head. So you what to believe? All day long, beating you over the head with the beat. You're telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. So what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The entire city goes up in flames, and the people who are still healthy, they get mad at the sick people, and they start crucifying. We don't have no day, not a jet, find a better place. Screaming off the sky, getting clean, and refreshing race. Getting green, and refreshing race. We don't have no day, not a jet, find a better way. We're here to cut dumb schmucks from the front truck. Just another day, two trunks with your thumbs up. We don't have no day, not a jet, find a better way. We're skipping off the sky, getting green, cause you're flying plane.
When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
We're here to cut. Just another clean trunk with your thumbs up. We're here to cut dumb schmucks from the front truck. Just another clean trunk with your thumbs up. We don't have no day, not a jet, find a better way. We're screaming off the sky, getting green, cause you're funky plane.
All right, that was Scrape off of Party Hospital. You're listening to Hangin' with Who? Every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on MixLR, brought to you by Movement 19. Make sure you follow us on steamit.com/@movement19. And on the line with us is Joey Angerone, who him and his son Quentin created that piece of music and all the songs you've been hearing tonight. And we're gonna wrap things up. But before we do, Joey, can you give us some idea what to expect from you in the near future? What should we be looking out for? And what's on your plate?
Well, for the first time ever, I feel like I really don't know. I can't really say that I would get involved with something something that encompassed so much as like Homa Suite did, but I don't know, man. I honestly don't know. Probably a little bit more Party Hospital. I'll make another film. I'm actually curious myself to know what it would be or what it would be about, because I have no idea. Maybe I'll do a documentary about you living up in Massachusetts.
I can give you a lot of material, that's for sure.
I know you can.
Oh, all right. Well, man, this has been great. This has been awesome. And now, where can the listeners grab the album?
It's on YouTube. So if you just Googled Party Hospital Unfunded, it's the Unfunded is the album, and it'll pop up right there. And so you'll find that there. And then, I just actually put Coma Suite. It was a private video on Vimeo up until this. It's unprivatized now, so you could.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Oh, so tell me what did you and the wife think? You guys had a screening last night. Tell me about that.
So he wants to know what we thought about Coma Suite since we watched it last night. She says it was good. Actually, she enjoyed it a lot because it's very difficult to get Mary to sit down and watch something in its entirety. So I can speak for her.
I know how that is. So
so that's a great
tickled
sign.
that you would watch that together.
And I was thoroughly impressed, having seen you grow and develop and gain experience and develop and hone your skills over the years. I gotta say, wow, like stellar, absolutely.
I know you watched the whole thing, right?
Yes.
I know, because on Vimeo you could see who watched it till the very end, which is so weird. And I knew you watched it, and I was like, well, let's see if you watched the whole thing or not. I'm such a creep weirdo when it comes to that, but
That's a little creepy. Yes.
it's sure. I'm a huge.
All right, wait. Mary has something. What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, she says you should make a sequel.
Oh, a sequel starring you guys.
Interesting. Now you the only sequel that I know you've ever done is Tenderfoot and Jesus Juice, right?
Well, I did a sequel to Con Carnivoro.
Oh, that's right.
But it's more of a reimagining than a sequel.
And what about? Wait a minute. What about Carne de Carla?
That's another sequel. That was the first sequel.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you what.
I want to ask you what stood out for you with Coma Suite? Like, what was like super impactful scene-wise?
Honestly, I don't know if I could pick one scene necessarily, but the ultimate, how it came together, the storyline, and what it turned out to be. Because to be honest with you, it was one of the, how a lot of films are kind of like obvious. This one wasn't obvious.
That's a huge compliment, man.
And well, it wasn't to me. Let's put it that way. Some people
that was the biggest for me. That was one. Like I wanted the end. I wanted to be like, I didn't want anyone to see it coming.
You know what Mary says? She had no idea.
Wow.
So that's that's the one
That's
thing that stands
me,
out
man.
to me. Scene wise, man, hard to stomach for some people, I can imagine, and I don't want to give too much away, but the carrot. And that's what Mary says the same
What'd she
thing.
say?
At the same time, we say the carrot scene.
Yeah. Okay.
What did you use for the poop?
Oh, dude. Well, I see now. I can really get into this. I don't know.
No. Let's keep this brief. We're at the end. We're at the end of the show.
All right. Well, it's funny because the girl, the Asian girl who's in the film, it was down to like 3 different actors, and the thing that she said to me that made me cast her over the other 2 was that it seemed like a Coen Brothers script. And when she said that, I was like, boom, hired.
Oh, wow.
Even though her English wasn't the best, and it didn't really matter. Dude, it was her idea to do like the poop on the carrot thing. and it was her idea to take a bite out of it at the end.
Isn't that
so?
something?
I mean, that's pretty much giving everything away. But I was like, you know what, man? Without her, that's one of my favorite parts of the film. She brought that girl. Her name is Roxanne Lee. She's amazing. If you see the film and you see the credits, if you're a casting director, she is amazing. I can't wait to work with her again. But we used jelly. It was, dude. So we did that. It was an Airbnb in Bed-Stuy, and like I said, we took over this guy's apartment. We rearranged his entire place. And all the neighbors knew we were up to no good in there, which is a whole other story. But the only thing in his refrigerator was like a 6-pack of beer, butter, and some jelly. So all right, we'll just smear some jelly on the carrots and make it look like shit,
I will never look at jelly the same way again.
Or carrots.
You have a way of doing these things to me, Joey. but at this point in the show, I do have to get back to the office.
That's an inside joke. That's a whole other interview. Thank you, videos.
Well, as I said, we'll invite you back. And the last thing I will ask is to give us something else for the after show post, something besides Coma Suite.
I want to say one thing. I want to say that I love you, JP. You're one of my favorite people in the world. You know this.
Now I'm choking up.
Well, it's true, man. And I like you because you're exciting, you're interesting, you're fun, you're funny, you're smart. You're into all kinds of crazy, weird shit. And, throughout the years, I've had friends that have come and gone. And like you said, physically, we might not hang out with each other. I mean, it's been years since we've seen each other. But, man, what you do when you play live, your skills, your DJ sets, like all that stuff that you do, I constantly tell Kim, I'm like, man, fucking JP, why not? I fucking love this guy, man.
Oh man,
Yeah,
I got
it's
goosebumps, dude. Stop it!
true,
I'm not
man.
on the air.
It's
Oh,
It's true. I love you, dude. And just to sit here and talk with you freely about things, open-minded. I know I could say anything around you and not be judged.
that's
That's what I love.
that's what we
about
do,
you, man.
man. That's
I do.
just how
I
we
love you,
roll,
brother.
Joey. I love you too, man. Thank you so much for doing this again.
It's my pleasure.
We'll definitely we'll get the after show post out tonight, and so if you could send us over something else, even if it's just a trailer or some sneak peek or something something
My
cool you want to
Instagram
show
is
everybody.
Grind.
Well, you
Yeah.
pick it, and we'll get everything
Oh, I
linked
got
up.
this little short film I'll send you guys. That the one that Quentin was talking about with the handcuffs is kind of cool. I'll send that over to you.
Okay, all right, awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for doing this, and we will do this again, and I will be talking to you soon.
Look, my love to your wife and your kids too, JP.
And same here.
All right, man.
There
Talk
you have
soon.
it. There you have it.
Woo!
Ladies and gentlemen, JoeyAngerone.com. We're going to get everything linked up, the Instagram and all that on the show post, and he's just said he's going to send us another film, something else for you to watch. I hope that you've had a chance to see Coma Sweet. If not, don't worry. It's going to be up on the pre-show post indefinitely on the blockchain forever. So, as I said before, make sure you follow us on steemit.com/@movement19. And I got to shout out my Steam Music Alliance SMA community on Steemit. Tomorrow night we'll be live at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with The Roadblock. And, this was something else. These are the moments that I live for, ladies and gentlemen, when I do this for you. And from week to week, we touch on a lot of sensitive and controversial topics, and a lot of my guests are all of my guests are professionals in their own right and well versed in the things that they bring to the table. And every once in a while, I like to do something like this with someone who I have some more of a personal connection to, and I'm never sure what direction it's going to go. And as I said earlier in the interview, here I am focusing on highlighting a friend of mine's art, their creative outlet, something they're very good at, something I want you to see and I want you to hear. And the conversation just went to so many places that actually Joey and I really haven't had those kind of conversations quite to that extent. But it's a good one. I hope that you enjoy it as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. And I do have one last song to play from him, and I'll probably leave you with that. So thank you for listening. You've been listening to Hanging with Who. I am yours truly, your friendly neighborhood White Owl, the Who Banger. Each and every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be on Steam Music Alliance tomorrow and Thursday. Thursdays we move to 4 p.m. We'll get it all up on the blog. Don't worry. Everyone, love, peace, and everything else positive under the sun.
That's why they say they have to stress all your tattoo. Talking about your pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures and penny shit.